quarterly business meeting so that we can get that started and then get to the real business of the worship of our thrice holy God. So let me call us together to this meeting, call us together by prayer. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, how we thank you and praise you that we have the opportunity to conduct business in your name. Father, we thank you for the blessings that you have been pouring out upon us here at Fellowship Baptist. We thank you for each one who's here tonight. But Father, we do have some issues that need to be taken care of. And Father, we just pray that you would help us to do these things decently and in order, and then proceed to our evening worship service. So we commit ourselves unto you in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, first thing that we're going to do tonight is to have Ms. Krista Jansen Van Vuren to come up and to read us the minutes.
Good evening. All right, I'm going to read the annual business meeting minutes of January 31st of 2021. Pastor Pyatt opened the meeting in prayer. The minutes from the quarterly business meeting October 25th of 2020 were read. Wayne Sutton made a motion to accept the minutes read and seconded by Mark Kirby. Motion carried. The financial report. Ben Muller-Parthy read the Treasurer's Report for 2020. There was a surplus of $119,000 and more due to the less spending in 2020, with fewer activities due to COVID. Electrical repairs due to lightning strikes were done, as well as AC repairs, which was due to age-related, and roof repairs. A law firm relationship was established for as-needed use in the future. An online banking platform was developed. A new camera and software was set up, enabling online broadcasting of our church services. This has increased our church sermon views 4 times. A line of credit was also established. Pastor prayed the congregation for their faithful giving. Pastor Pyatt reviewed the benevolent fund status. In 2020, the fund gave 26 gifts to individuals, widows, and widowers for Christmas. A gift was given to Cornerstone Baptist Church in North Lakeland due to hardships from COVID. The missionary fund received $850 in donations in memory of Don Hubbard. And the fund helped the Gil Thomas Ministry and also Andrew Cummings Ministry. The Portugal Church was given $7,000 for their church building. Ron and Sherry Yeater are in need of a handicap van. $1,500 came in to date. And the Cummings family Alaska trip had received $1,780 in donations to date. Danny Lee made a motion to accept and was seconded by David Marsteller. Motion carried. And then the future plans for 2021 was discussed. 2021 proposed budget items as a roofing of all the 3 church buildings, AC needs replacement, and lightning protection equipment, which can range from $7,000 to $10,000. Ron Carpenter made a motion to accept it and was seconded by Gary McCoy. Motion carried. Pastor Pyatt presented the candidate for an associate pastor. Ryan McKean is scheduled to preach both services on February 21st. Pastor Pyatt presented the 2021 missions budget. The Ericksons increased with $100 to $300. Haiti Orphanage increased with $100 to $300. Shepherd's Ministry increased with $100 to $200. A Women's Choice increased with $100 to $200. And a furlough relief for Andrew and Tassie Cummings was still unknown amount at that time. There is still much uncertainty how the children's ministry programs will be run in 2021, with possible expenses for VBS and the summer children's ministry. Membership. It was proposed to remove the following names from church membership. Tiffany, Stephen, Will, and Evie McNally was upon their request from them. Mary Beth Barr, she moved out of the state. Also, Sherry Dietrich, she moved out of the state. All of these were in good standing with Fellowship Baptist Church. Pastor proposed to amend the financial secretary duties. Carl Wickman made a motion to accept and was seconded by Susan Pyatt, and the motion carried. During this annual business meeting, the following church members were voted in for elected positions. Deacons were Mark Kirby, Jeremy Arnold, Rich Pyatt, and Gordon Montoya. Church clerk, Krista Jansen Van Vieren. Sunday school superintendent, Harold Cummings, and treasurer, Charles Jansen Van Vieren. Pastor closed the meeting in prayer. And then we had addendums. On March 14th, a business meeting was held during the morning service to vote for Ryan McKean as the associate pastor. Pastor opened the meeting in prayer. He reviewed the job description of an associate pastor and the process of the search for our candidate, Ryan McKean. The search committee presented unanimously Ryan McKean to the congregation. The congregation then, with the members over 18 years, voted in favor to accept Ryan as the new Fellowship Baptist Church associate pastor. During the morning church service of May 16th, Ryan and Chelsea McKean was voted in as members of Fellowship Baptist Church. John Shelburne made a motion to accept and was seconded by Mike Spiegel. Motion carried. Respectfully resubmitted, Krista Jansen Van Vieren. Thank you.
Are there any additions, corrections to your recollection? If not, do I have a motion to accept the minutes as read? So moved by Mr. McCoy, seconded by Mark Kirby. Gary McCoy and Mark Kirby. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed like sign. So ordered. We're now going to have the chairman of our deacons come, and Tom McNally is going to go over our financial statement, which was provided back on the back table, and then one item of business.
Does everybody have a financial statement? Do you have a balance sheet on one side and a quarterly statement on the other? If not, shame on you. Better get it. As far as the balance sheet, I don't have a whole lot to say about that. I mean, that's just kind of a breakdown of our assets and liabilities, what we have in various funds and so forth. Maybe just one item. You notice on the benevolent fund, we have a little over $10,000 in there. So if you do know of any benevolent needs, please let our pastor know or one of the deacons, and we'll be glad to look into that. So just a little heads up on that. Of a little more interest would be on the other side, the quarterly statement of receipts and disbursements. And all I have is really positive stuff here to say about that, because just a couple of lines. If you notice at the very top line, for general fund, tithes and offerings, you can see that we, and by the way, since this is the first quarter, what the numbers you see on the left side are going to be the same as on the right side, or this is the year to date is going to be the same thing as the quarter to date. But if you notice that for tithes and offerings, our budget called for $86,400, and the actual tithes and offerings were $99,938, or a little over $13,500 over what we budgeted. So all good news on that front. And then if you want to drop all the way down to the bottom where it says total disbursements, you'll notice that our budget called for $87,934, whereas we only spent $80,630. So we made more than where we brought, the tithes were more than what we were figuring, and our expenses were less. And so the change in the general fund balance there at the bottom was $19,308. So all good news as far as that goes. If you, I mean, that's about all I have really. I was trying to see if there's anything in particular to mention. Maybe one item. Most of the actuals and the budget are in line. If you notice under discretionary, Discretionary where it says worship, you'll notice that the actuals were $4,700, the budget was $2,100, or it's about $2,600 over what we would estimate. Just to let you know, that was due to purchasing some new sound equipment, some new microphone stands, things like that that were old and needed to be replaced. So, but other than that, I think everything else is pretty clear. Did anyone have any questions? Not that I'd be able to answer it, but you're free to ask. Okay. Again, there is a more detailed statement in the back there if you are interested. The one item of business.
Let's get that approved.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, as Brother Tom mentioned, that there's more detail in the back if you so desire that. Is there a motion to accept the financial statement as given? So moved by Carl Wigman and seconded by Elsie Smith. Any further discussion? Realizing you can always ask questions. We have an open policy on all that. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. So ordered.
I heard, Krista mentioned in the report that, we talked about lightning rods last time because we have had a number of lightning strikes in the last couple of years, taking out fire alarms and computer equipment and this and that. And so we do want to proceed ahead with purchasing a lightning rod system on all the buildings. And I think she mentioned somewhere around 7,000 to 10,000. The actual number is more around 13,000 to 14,000. So this is what we're proposing. At this time, we'd like to do that, and because of that amount of money, we need to vote on it. So it's the deacon's recommendation that we go ahead and proceed with the purchase and installation of the lightning rod system on all the buildings. Let's just say maybe not to exceed 15,000. That will be the proposal. Okay.
Okay, pastor and deacons are recommending the lightning rods to give us at least a budget of $15,000 to get that taken care of. Susan Pyatt makes the motion, second by Wayne Sutton. Any discussions, questions? Volunteers to take the bolt yourself? No. Is it all three buildings?
I believe that's all three buildings. I believe so.
Rich isn't here, but we think it is.
I think the last time I talked to him, that was all three.
Okay, he said last time he talked to him. Okay, it's been motion seconded. All in favor say aye. Opposed, like sign. So ordered. Thank you. I think we're done. Okay, I think that's all that we have tonight. We will be taking care of that. We are taking paying close attention to our roof needs. We have gotten some estimates on looking at the roof and so forth. We're right now going to just put that on a pause because we've had it inspected by at least 3 or 4, and no one's saying it's truly urgent. But that is about anywhere from say about $60,000 to $80,000 expense that we may be looking at. But God has so blessed, and we could not go in debt over that. So we're praising God for that. Let's bow together and ask God's blessing and close this and then call ourselves to worship. Our Father in heaven, we do thank you for the hand of blessing that we've seen in a very material way. And Father, I pray now that as we move from this session of business, something very necessary, and to hold different ones to accountability. But now as we move into the realm of the secular, into the realms of the sacred, as we come to worship, may this time tonight be good and sweet. Father, as we rejoice at what we've been able to do and see your work in Brazil and our participation in that. So we ask for your blessing tonight as we have gathered here in the name of Christ, for it's in his precious name that we do pray. Amen. Brother Wayne.
Please stand with me as we sing. We're starting with Tossi's favorite hymn. Now, I know we say that these are someone's favorite hymn. That could be right then at that point in time. That may change periodically. But at this point in time, looking at Behold Our God. Excellent. Has held the oceans in his hands, who has numbered every grain of sand. Kings and nations tremble at his voice, all creation rises to rejoice. Behold our God, seated on his throne, come let us adore him. Behold our King, nothing can compare, come let us adore him. Who has given counsel to the Lord? Who can question any of his words? Who can teach the one who knows all things? Who can fathom all his wondrous deeds? Behold our God, seated on his throne, come let us adore him. Behold our King, nothing can compare, come let us adore him. Who has found the nails upon his hand, bearing all the guilt of sinful man? God eternal, humble to the grave, Jesus Savior, risen now to reign. Behold our God, seated on his throne, come let us adore him. Behold our King, nothing can compare, come let us adore him. Behold our God, seated on his throne, come let us adore him. Behold our King, nothing can compare, come let us adore him. Very good. Let's look at number 2 in your blue book if you need it. Come thou fount of every blessing. Now do watch out if I heard correctly. Verse 2 up here will be slightly different from verse 2 in here. So you may want to watch the, that way. Watch the wall when it comes to verse 2. Come thou fount of every blessing, to my heart to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet, sung by
Good evening. Our catechism questions tonight are questions 82 through 84. Please read responsively with me. Which is the ninth commandment?
The ninth commandment is, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor.
What is required in the ninth commandment?
The ninth commandment requires the maintaining and promoting of truth between man and man, and of our own and our neighbor's good name, especially in witness bearing.
What is forbidden in the ninth commandment?
The ninth commandment forbids whatsoever is prejudicial to truth or injurious to our own or our neighbor's good name.
I'll let you stay seated. We're looking at this last one, number 307, just verses 1 and 4. Verses 1 and 4. There's a call comes ringing on the restless waves, send the light, send the light. There are souls to rescue, there are souls to save, send the light, send the light, send the light, the blessed gospel light, let it shine from shore to shore. Send the light, the blessed gospel light, let it shine from shore to shore. Let us not grow weary in the work of love. Send the light, send the light. Let us gather troops for a crown above. Send the light, send the light, send the light, the blessed gospel light, let it shine from shore to shore. Send the light, the blessed gospel light, let it shine forevermore.
Well, Andrew doesn't need a long introduction, so here's Andrew Cummings, our missionary, one we will claim to Brazil.
Well, good evening. Thank you to whoever chose the hymns, and thank you to especially that last one. I mentioned it somewhat disparagingly in the morning service. I'm reminded of when I studied at Spurgeon years ago, back when there was a Spurgeon Baptist Bible College, and in the dorm I was the RA of the dorm, and the lights, the fluorescent lights started going out one by one, and there was a system where we would put a requisition in, and we were supposed to, then someone would come along to repair, and so we put numerous requisitions in, and no one came along to repair it for some time, and things just kept getting darker and darker within our dormitory. And so finally I got a bunch of the guys together, and we asked for special music in chapel. And so we got up there, and we sang that song just with a special verse. It went, there's a call comes ringing from the Spurgeon dorm, give us lights, we need lights. Taking showers in darkness is not the norm, give us lights, we need lights. And then the chorus went, send the lights, the big fluorescent lights, let them shine from hall to hall. Give us lights, the big fluorescent lights, so we can see while in the stall. And that very afternoon, the lights were installed, so it worked. We always get asked when we come here, as we arrive and on furlough, and everyone's so gracious and has us over to their homes and takes us out to restaurants and just basically peppers us with questions. And one of the questions they always ask is, what do you notice that has changed? Both here in the United States and at church and with us. And so I came up with a short list of things that have changed. For instance, when When we went to the field in January of 2017, Barack Obama was the president. So now his vice president is the president, and things have gone fairly smoothly. You know, you like to see that, the smooth transitions of power. What was it that John Shelburne said this morning? Sarcasm is my love language, or something like that, yeah. I was reflecting that when we left, and when we went to Brazil, if someone said the word Corona, what came to mind was either an old typewriter or a Mexican beer. And along those same lines, when we left to go back to Brazil, wearing a mask in a bank was frowned upon. A change around here, a pastor had a black Corvette. As far as our family is concerned, there are two major changes. When we left, we only had one teenage son. So now we have two. For a brief moment in time, two teenage sons. And also, when we left, I had a gallbladder. I always said that I figured I'd probably be buried in Brazil, but I imagined it'd be all at once and not piecemeal, you know, And finally, one thing that has never changed and will probably never, ever change, and that is that my wife looks way younger than I do. That was the same, and the gap has only increased, and I don't even know how that can happen, but the gap has increased since we left. So those are some things that we have noticed that have changed or remained the same since we left. We have a lot to talk about, so we'll get right into this. Our presentation up there. Can everybody see that? Do we need to dim the lights, or is everybody good? Okay. This is our family picture right now. We do have a better picture coming. Next week, we'll be taking a professional picture, and then we'll make that into prayer cards, and we will be sure to send the church a whole lot of prayer cards. Okay, now we tested this before. Okay, well, I'm just going to have to, this will have to be voice activated. So I'll say, hey, and so, hey. Okay, there we go. So as most of you know, we're missionaries in Brazil, in the northeast part of Brazil. That little marker, which I stole off of Google Maps, that is the city of São Luís, where we live. As you can see, it's about halfway between the city of Fortaleza, which is a well-known city in Brazil, vacation spot, and the mouth of the Amazon River. And so I tell people we're right on the lower edge of the Amazon rainforest. It's great. It's warm enough so it's green all year round and lush green all year round, but it's not deep jungle where we are. So many of you have been there, so I'm describing to you what you have already seen. This is our island. It actually is an island. It's surrounded on all sides by water. And those two red dots you see there, the top one is where we live, where our house is, and the bottom one is where the Ebenezer Baptist Church is. And by the way, I so appreciate you using the Ebenezer verse. It frustrates me when people try to rewrite Ebenezer out of that song. So anyway, the Ebenezer Church is the lower dot there on the map. Go ahead and move forward. God has allowed us to minister in a part of the world that has some incredible examples of His creation. This, for our 20th wedding anniversary, we were able to get to the western part of our state of Maranhão, a place where we've been wanting to get for a long time, called Carolina, and it is known for its waterfalls and river excursions. And we went with a couple of friends of ours, and we went on that river, and the guide, as we were coming back, the guide showed us one alligator. He pointed out one alligator, and our friends freaked out. It's an alligator. And I'm thinking, oh, you've never been to Florida. But it's a wonderful place. If you can ever want to come down and see this place, it's amazing. And then, next picture, we live just 4 hours from this place. This is called the Lençóis Maranhenses. It's a vast dunes. and then the rainwater gets caught in the depressions of the dunes, and it's just a wonderful place to visit. I don't know if any of you, probably not, because we're all Christians here. None of you have seen the Marvel movies, and none of you have seen the last two movies, both of which had scenes that were filmed at these dunes. So it was pretty interesting. We had big names coming to our city for a while. It was really neat. Next, speaking of our city, this is it. Our city is over 400 years old, founded by the French and then taken over by the Portuguese. It's the only city in Brazil that was founded by a Protestant, by a French Huguenot. The Portuguese kicked him out shortly after he founded the city. We have a very old section. It looks, if you've ever been to Lisbon or other old cities in Portugal, it looks a lot like that because it was built by the Portuguese back in the 1600s. And then we have, of course, a very modern part of the city as well. Next picture. Our main ministry for the last 8 years has been the Igreja Batista Ebenezer, the Ebenezer Baptist Church. What you see there is our building. They were building this while we were on furlough. Our last furlough, it's the educational building, is the first floor, and then the second floor is our parsonage. When we got back to Brazil, we discovered that there had been multiple problems with the building. The contractor that we had hired it's hard for me to find words in either English or Portuguese to describe how bad a job he did, and how dishonest he was with us. So we had a lot of fallout from that in our church. So we've spent a good amount of our term, as far as construction-wise, undoing some of the damage he did. We had to redo both of the roofs that you see there, the top and the bottom roof, and just I could spend all day going through the list of things we had to do. As a result of that, we made absolutely no progress on our auditorium, which is where you see that blue tent. So we were fine in the Sunday school room that we had adapted for our auditorium until COVID hit. And then once COVID hit, well, we weren't having services. But then when we started coming back, the government put all kind of restrictions on space, and there was no way we could meet in that small place and maintain social distancing. So we started meeting outside, which was fine when it wasn't rainy season. Once rainy season came along, then then there were problems. So we became Presbyterians, and so we finally decided to go ahead and purchase this tent. I tell people we became tent-making missionaries at that point. We put this blue tent up there, and that served very well while the church continues to raise funds and work towards building their auditorium, which we're hopeful to be able to do in 2022 when we return from furlough. We had, because of the construction and some of the bad feelings that came about because of the construction, and when we got back, we discovered there were issues. And I spent from 2017 till the middle of 2018 trying to put out brush fires and bring about some reconciliation. And every time I would put out a brush fire, two more would come up. It was a really tense time, and it culminated with one of our families, the founding family of our church, leaving the church. And that was in August of 2018. And then that same month, another key family in our church their daughter became sick they had no idea what, and they had to travel all over Brazil to try to find a specialist for her, so they were gone. Then another key family in our church, two young ladies, a couple and then their sister and their two kids were in a car accident that incapacitated them from serving in our church. All of these people, the family that left, the family whose daughter got sick, and the family in the car accident, they were very active. All of them in the family included Sunday school teachers and other people who were just really active in the church. So that hit us very hard. You hit the next picture. This picture is from a service we had, where one of the services we had in the church, where we just cried out to God, said, "What's going on? What's happening?" And for God to bring healing, for God to bring reconciliation, and so on. I remember I sent a couple texts back and forth with Pastor Pyatt saying, "Help, what's going on?" And it was very encouraging, and other pastor friends as well were very encouraging during that time. But what's neat is what God did in the church. You want to hit the next, that slide. This This is Pastor Francivaldo, the guy there's on, let's see, on the right in that picture. And he was with us the whole time. And so God used him to come and support us in our ministry. On the bottom right, you see Itasiara teaching a class of teenagers, a membership class for teenagers. The bottom right, the bottom left, you see Michael, who really developed his ministerial and his skills about speaking in public, and he's giving a devotional before Sunday school class. So there are a lot of things that happened during that time that were very positive. And the guy sitting in the middle on the top, that is Pedro, who we talked about this morning. And as Pastor Francivaldo and myself talking with him, kind of interviewing him as he was preparing for church membership. So that was a neat thing. Next picture. Another thing that we developed over those years was the men's ministry. And in fact, actually, the men's ministry has really taken off in just the last few months. And we were sitting around with the men, and we were kind of talking, okay, what are some things that we need that we need as men? And a couple of them said, none of us, or very few of us, ever had any training from our fathers as to how to be husbands and fathers. And even some of the practical things, like fixing plumbing, or basic electric wiring, or how to check the oil in your car, and things like that. None of us have learned that. And so we decided to bring specialists in, and every month they bring a specialist in. A couple months ago, they had a guy teaching basic electricity. No one was electrocuted, to my knowledge. And so it's been really good to see that take off. And they do other activities. Our first activity was a big fishing trip, and that brought in all kinds of guys from outside the church and so on, and it was great. And keep going. Then Itasiara has been very active in the beginning since the beginning in our church's women's ministry, and all of these ladies are from our church, except for one who was the speaker that we invited from outside the church. So all of them, except for one, are ladies who are either members or come to our church regularly. Next picture. And I mentioned Pastor Francivaldo. This was one of the big, I would say one of the huge blessings, because as we recovered from 2018, he was there. And when he came on, we brought him on with the idea that this would be a transition. And so for the first couple years, he served as my associate pastor. Then in 2020, beginning of 2020, we switched roles. And so he became the senior pastor, and I became his associate pastor. And so this gave the church a year to get used to calling him pastor, and get used to my saying, well, you really need to talk to Pastor Francivaldo about that. And you have no idea how good that felt. To say, well, you should really talk. Have you talked with Pastor Francivaldo? You should talk to him first. And then, of course, that was 2020. And we all know what kind of a year 2020 was. And so he kind of got a little baptism by fire there, but he did very well in guiding the church through all of the COVID uncertainty. And has done an outstanding job. In that period of time, while he was still our associate pastor, you can switch go back. I want to point out one thing, and this is very neat. This is really neat. On that top picture, there's a guy where we're laying our hands on, and that's our commissioning service for him to assume the role of senior pastor of the church. And so that guy behind him in the white, his name is Sidney. Sidney is one of our deacons at the church. But before he was at our church, he was at one of our other churches on the other side of town, and he, back years ago, invited a little boy and his two little sisters to come to Bible club. And that little boy and two little sisters got saved at that Bible club, and the little boy is Pastor Francivaldo. So that is the coolest thing, because here's Sidney now, a deacon serving under the man who he brought to Christ. And that just fills my heart to see God do that kind of thing in our church. Okay, then Pastor Francivaldo he is supported, by the way, by churches in the state of Ceará and other places in Brazil. So he's a missionary supported by Brazilian churches, and so he went to give a report to some of his supporting churches, and I got a call saying, Pastor, I've met her. She's the one. And because we'd been on his case, you really got to find someone. And so he said, I met her. She's the one. So a few months later, we went down and were able to help celebrate their wedding. And so Jessica, his wife, has come up to San Luis and has jumped in with both feet to the ministry there. Next picture. This is, not everybody was there, but a good amount of people. This is as close as we can get to a full picture of the Ebenezer Church family. And this was the farewell party, and it was really neat. Had the folks came and had cake and so on, and we kind of, it wasn't just saying goodbye to them, but it was saying goodbye to this phase of our ministry, because we don't plan on returning back to Ebenezer as in any kind of ministerial role. In fact, at the beginning of 2021, I resigned from all positions in the church, and it was just Pastor Francival. And it was the most natural thing in the world. He just took it right and went right along. And the church was on a decided growth, a growth spurt, I guess, but a trajectory of growth. And that just continued with no bump. Both in terms of attendance and financially, things just continued the way they were going, very positively after I pulled out. So that was really neat to see. And it's really, I don't know, I guess I'm more excited about that because I've seen churches especially in an international context where that transition is very rough and has even in some cases ruined a church plant. And so it was nice to see that and continue to see. We get reports, we hear what's going on, and it's all just very positive. We're excited about that. Next picture. This is just recently. We try to include in these presentations the most recent things, and this is just recently the church having a bazaar, is that right? Like a yard sale or a flea market to raise money for the construction of the church. And so they're rolling up and have been for a long time. We did a marathon, we've done other things where they've been rolling up their sleeves and raising money to build their own auditorium. And also, go to the next, I'm not sure if okay, this is something else, but they also had, while they did that, they had an evangelism outreach, and 2 people made professions of faith at that yard sale. So that was very exciting. So that the Ebenezer church plant has been our main focus, our main ministry, but we also are involved in many other things. We are involved in an association of churches, and so these are our fellow pastors, and then at the end there's one of the deacons and his wives. I hasten to point out that she is not a pastor, and so just to avoid all confusion there. But these are our fellow pastors of our churches. We have 5 congregations in our association in the city of San Luis. 3 of these are fully constituted churches. Ours, the Ebenezer Church, and 2 others are fully independent churches. The other 2 are congregations that are church plants that are being planted by those other churches. So we've been able to, in one way or another, contribute to the ministries of all of these churches at one point or another. Go ahead and, yes. For example, Itaciata gets invited almost every year to participate in at least one VBS in another church. My wife has some extremely well-developed organizational skills. And so when people are trying to organize a VBS, and she's also very good with kids, and so they just go naturally to her and say, can you come and help us? And of course, she's very happy to do that. Next picture. She's also very involved in ladies' conferences. And our association has a ladies' ministry, which she was, or ladies' association, which she was instrumental in reviving. And so now it's going full steam, and she's always asked to bring devotionals or to participate in one way or another. Next picture. Then, of course, 220 happened. 2020 happened. I'm not sure. I think I forgot to put a picture in there, honey. I just remembered that I don't have a picture of our Bible Institute, which is designed to train lay people to be leaders in the church. And so I'm teaching there, and I'm preparing right now to go back and teach church history. As soon as we get back, they'll be doing the church history module, and so I'll be teaching that. Anyway, 2020 hit, and so the COVID hit, and so we went online, and our son Nathaniel was that's Michael, our son Michael, with his technological abilities and artistic flair, was able to help us set up a good, a good online presence to be able to minister to our church while we were online. This is from our porch. Next picture. And then, of course, one of the big benefits of this term, and one which Fellowship Baptist Church was very instrumental in, was the fact that we were able to build this house. Ever since we've gone to Brazil, ever since we went there in 2005, we've lived in rental facilities. And we didn't mind that, except for the fact that we would always, when we came on furlough, we'd have to pack up our things and store them somewhere, and then go back and find out how much of the stuff we actually had left. And both times, we lost quite a bit of stuff to bugs and or water. So this is the fact that we now have a house and our stuff is just at that house, and we just had to basically pack it up a little bit. We have one of the young people from our church kind of keeping an eye on things at the house, doing some light maintenance around. But this is the house, and this is the beginning. On the left-hand side, that's how it looked when we moved into it. And on the right-hand side is after Itasiara has been working on it since and all the flowers and landscaping and everything you see, that's all her. She's just made the desert bloom, so to speak, around that house. And besides keeping us high and dry, the house is also served as a hospitality center. So you can, the next slide there. And we would love to extend that hospitality to you. And this is a serious invitation. Many of you have already been there. Some of you were there before we built the house. Others, you've already seen it. But we have plenty of room. These columns on our porch all hold hammocks. And people sleep in the hammocks and out there. It's wonderful. Nice little ocean breeze from nearby just comes through there and makes it excellent. Next picture, and we've hosted on the left. We've hosted our pastors group several times. That's a Christmas barbecue, and notice how Christmassy it is there on the left. And then that makes much more of an impact up north, I got to tell you. And then on the right, we do this a lot too. We just any given weekend, we'll say, "Hey, let's bring the young people over," and so our house fills up with young people from the church. And they bring their hammocks, they bring their food. We put all the food together, and we have a great old time with the young people. So, like I said, besides keeping us sheltered and everything, the house is served ministerially. And this church, especially, one of the things that you guys invested in was a drop ceiling. Because when we moved into it, it was just the tiles and the beams and the bugs that came in through the cracks. And so the drop ceiling helped with that, and also allowed us to put in air conditioning so that it would keep us cool and we could sleep, which was nice. Next picture. Okay, and I mentioned people coming down and visit, and I just want to talk a little bit because in this term, actually became kind of a big part of our ministry to the people there in São Luís. We've always brought conference speakers down. So like Pastor Pyatt's been there a few times, a couple times to Brazil, and other of our supporting pastors and even non-supporting pastors have come down. This is Brian and Judy King, who came down in 2017 and spoke at a conference. They're friends of ours from up in New York. Next picture. This is the conference. This was, of course, 2017, 500 Years of the Reformation. And so he was really into that, and we had a great conference. Next picture. We did this term, the first of something I've been wanting to do for a long time there, which is a music week. Some of our other associations in other parts of Brazil do this. And on our last furlough, I made contact with this lady who I've known for a long time, Kathy Knowles, and she is a professional musician, music teacher, and leads a band and all kinds of stuff. And I told her about my dream, and she just jumped on the bandwagon, so to speak, right away, and brought with her a team of musicians in 2018, and they came down. And we had this amazing week where we trained the people. Go ahead and we'll show you the next picture. That was their team, and then the team we put together in Brazil. I had actually sent one of the guys up to the United States to work at a camp that has a music week there so that he could get all kinds of ideas, and he came back and worked with the team. It worked really well. And then these are the team members and the people that attended. Next slide. We had all kinds of training, vocal training. Next slide, instrumental training, all different kinds of instruments. And then we put everybody together for a choir. And I don't have the video here, but if you go on our website, andrewcummings.com, and type in Music Week, you'll find a couple of videos of the choir numbers that they did, and it was really fantastic. We did a couple highbrow pieces, and then we did the old spiritual Shut the Door. I don't know if any of you have heard that song, Shut the Door, Keep Out the Devil, and they did that, and it was spectacular. Brought down the house. So, and then it had the result that I had hoped it would have, which was not just to have a good time at a music week, but it was to train people in the churches to kind of raise the level of the music in the churches. So right after that, I spoke at a conference in one of their churches, and they had a choir, and the people were singing in parts, in harmony. And it was wonderful to hear, and it was a result of the music week. Our church started a recorder choir, and as a result of the music week. And the kids, our kids were in demand in the recorder choir at other churches to go and play for their events. It was really neat. All of this due to that music week. And then, of course, we've always had groups come down, and this is the focus group from Fellowship, and you recognize some of these people. And we, of course, Pastor Dan there, with pulling his stomach in. He's in Alaska, I can say this. And so what we do with groups that come down, my idea is not just to tell you, but to kind of give you an idea of what we do with groups that come down. We do two things. Next picture. We get them involved with our teens at one or more of our churches. So this time we had game night, and game night was incredible. We spent all night playing board games. Monopoly is the international language, and then dodgeball. There was a ferocious dodgeball match, and just connect them with our teens. And of course, then Daniel gave a devotional, and we were able to bring a lot of teens. Oh, there's going to be this American group. Well, a lot of teens will come in that aren't part of our group, or they're on the periphery, and be able to be included. And then we also do English Day, and that's the next slide. And English Day is where we use all of our contacts in the English-speaking community, or the English as a second language community, and we rent out a facility, and the people that come from the United States, they plan the activities. And we plan activities for every level of English speaking. So they're basic activities for little kids, people who don't speak hardly any English, more intermediate students and advanced students, because we get students that come in from the college, from the local university, who are studying to be English teachers, and so they want something more advanced. And so we have all of these activities, and then we have, of course, a devotional and a skit time and all kinds of things. It's really neat. And this was in 2019, and we had another one planned for 2020, and that didn't work because of COVID. We had another music week planned for 2020, and that didn't work because of COVID. But 2020 ended up being a very good year, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Here's some more pictures of the English Day, some of the activities we had going on there. Then, the final group that we had come down was this group from West Windsor Baptist Church. It's one of our supporting churches in New York. And they came down to help us with the construction in the camp. And so this is a third kind of ministry that you could be involved in if you wish. We are involved at any given time in any number of construction projects, usually at camp. So they came down to help us build the kitchen. So this is a picture of our pavilion. I'm going to be talking more specifically about the camp in a minute, but this is a picture of our pavilion that we have at the camp, and on the end of it is where we put the kitchen. So next picture. And so we started building like Florida, our area in Brazil is lots of sand, and so we had to sink that column that you see there. We had to sink that down about 8 feet in the ground to where we could get solid ground, so it wouldn't wash out with the first rain. And then once we got the columns in, then we started putting up the wall. You can see the picture of the group. Next picture, Itaciata also worked with the ladies and paintings in the bathroom and you're looking, the picture on the right, you're looking from the bathrooms to about where the construction ended when the group had to leave. Next picture. This is how the bathrooms looked when the group got done with them, all painted and nice. Next picture. So let's use that as kind of a segue to talk about the camp. We purchased this property, and actually, if you remember, we were offered the piece of property kind of as two separate lots. And to buy one lot, Itasiara and I were able to take out a loan, but we weren't able to take out a loan to buy the other lot. And so Fellowship Baptist Church came in and bought the other section of the camp. So half of that camp property was purchased for us by Fellowship Baptist Church. And that was in 2011. Since 2011, we've been working on this camp. It's basically when we have money. By the way, what time are we done here? When we have money, we buy a little bit, we build a little bit, and then when the money runs out, we stop. When we came home on furlough last time, we had a wall, our front wall, and a well. That's it. That's all we had built. So this last term, we have seen a lot of progress, and this is with the camp being a secondary project. Next picture. This is Claudio and myself. Claudio is kind of the guy, he's our contractor. He's the guy who does all of my construction for the camp. Neat guy to work with. And this is at the beginning of our term. We're kind of looking out, figuring out what we're going to do with this property. So here's what we did. Oh, this map, I'm sorry, kind of shows you where that's our house up on the top. But once again, in the camp is the bottom, the red dot there in the bottom. We have to drive all the way around the island and up to where the camp is. All right. So we put together, one of the first things we did, we put together a development team. Pastor Jeandro in the striped shirt, Luan, who also came up to the camp up in New York and came back full of ideas. He's our program director. Franciello is in that left-hand picture standing next to Itasiara, and he's been with us since the very beginning, and he's our infrastructure guy. Next picture. We've spent a lot of time there, and so we put up. That's how it looked before. We had to bulldoze off an area that was to flatten it, and then we built the bathrooms, which you can see in the back, and then the pavilion, which you can see right there. And then, of course, when the group came, we built the kitchen. The group got the kitchen about halfway up, and then piece by piece, little by little, we built the kitchen up to where you see it right there, that yellow area. Like I said, we're always, every month, at least once, we go out to the camps, a 2-hour trip. So when we go out, we try to take a weekend and do some work. This particular day, we were doing some work on our waterfront. In the next picture, there's other kinds of projects. We keep the trails all what's the word I want to use, mowed and usable, so that anytime someone wants to use the camp, the trails are all able to be used. And then there's more waterfront. This is a family project, by the way. Michael and Nathaniel have both helped out a lot with this. Next picture, and some other basic projects. And anyway, this was a lot of work. And in 2020, remember I said 2020 was a great year. Next picture. I'm sorry, forgot. Kids from local youth groups sometimes come with us and help out. They're putting some shelves in the kitchen. Next picture. And then, of course, Itasiara. If it was me, it would still look all drab and just very utilitarian. She's the one that puts the sparkle in it. And she painted, and not only did she choose the colors, but she did all of that painting herself. All of it by herself while I was off doing other stuff. And it's really neat to see our churches get involved in this. The ladies group, I mentioned the ladies group before, they got together and spent a year raising money to be able to buy us this brand new industrial stove and oven. And then they also got together and bought us a set of pans and things like that. Next picture. So then in 2020, we saw the camp being put to use. And this was just, it made our hearts full. This is a pastor's retreat. All of our pastors with their families at this camp for a retreat. It was a wonderful, wonderful time. Very refreshing time for all of us at the end of the first wave of COVID in 2020. Next picture. This is the baptism that Ebenezer had at the camp. And if you look, those of you who are in the morning service, you look at that right-hand picture, the guy standing next to Pastor Francivaldo on the left, that's Pedro. And baptizing him was one of the greatest privileges of my life that I've ever had. It was just, you heard his story this morning. It was just amazing. Next picture. And then we had in November, we had our youth retreat, the very first youth retreat at the camp. And we had all of these people here, about 60 people total. 20 people got in a bus from another state and came to our retreat. Here's some pictures you can see of our chapel services. And ever since I started the camp, ever since we bought it, I've been saying to myself, I can hear, and anyone who will listen, I can hear the song, the kids singing, and I can hear in my mind the message being preached and the kids laughing with the activities and so on. And so then we got to see all of this become a reality in November. And I wouldn't have traded that for anything. It was wonderful. Next picture. Like I said, we're into tent making. This is Tent Making Missionaries. And this is a prayer request because right now for events, it's either hammocks or tents. And if we want to do more things there, we're going to have to build dormitories. So when we get back, we're going to be, that's going to be one of our main foci. We're going to focus on that. Is going to be the dormitories. And I mentioned that. This is just a praise. I mentioned that at the first church we visited here. And after that service, a guy came up to us with a $5,000 gift to start building the things. So it's going to take a little more than that, but still, man, that was exciting. Next picture. And of course, camp is not camp without a bonfire. So we have an area all cleared out where we have the bonfires. And then, of course, the activities. The guy that came up to New York, he came back with his head just full of ideas for camp activities, for the program, and so he put those to use. And the next picture, here's some recent work. I don't know if you can tell the color, but our development team is still active. This year, while I'm here, they're still active, and I'm in touch, and we're still doing things. We have to maintain it. Churches are having activities there. And so he went up and he put a special paint on the floor. The floor was just concrete. And so it's not really sealer, but he kind of sealed it up with this green paint and made it look better and everything. And then I just want to talk about the table. Some of you are aware maybe that I've written a couple books, The Missionary Max Adventures. These are not autobiographical. I just want you to know. Some people have asked if that's us on the cover. Well, you could maybe say that that's Itasiara, but then we have a problem because that's definitely not me that the girl there is holding on to. And the first picture shows them hanging from a rope over a group of angry nationals, not natives anymore, nationals. And I got to tell you, that rarely happens. But what I wanted to do was present missions as an adventure. This is kind of Indiana Jones meets David Livingstone. And those books are out on the table, and you can talk to my boys. My boys run my book table, but it's $10 for one, 2 for 20. And they are also on, you can also find them on Amazon for either as a regular book or for your Kindle. So they're there. And we're working on book 3. Some have asked about that. Book 3 is about 25% done, and I would like to finish it by July. We'll see if that happens. But it's going to be great. I mean, it's all up here, man. It's going to be if I can just get it on paper, it will be great. This has brought some interesting opportunities. There's a class of 6th graders up in a Christian school up in New York, the school I went to through junior high, and I hit the next picture there, who they came to school as their teacher's been reading them the books, and so for Spirit Week, they all decided to come to school dressed as characters from the books, which was awesome. I mean, I've done some lives with them, and then I sent that picture to the artist who does the covers, is a friend of mine in Brazil, and he drew all of the characters, but in the same poses as the kids struck there, and so that's what you're seeing there. So that was just, and Lord willing, let's see, week after next, I'm going to be meeting this class of kids. So I'm just super excited to be able to do that. It's a lot of fun. Next picture. This is so you can keep in touch with us. We have a website, andrewcummings.com. Extremely creative name. Hopefully you can remember it. And then we're on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all as Andrew Cummings. Once again, very creative. But I try to keep all of these things on topic. And whenever something of significance happens in our ministry, I post it on our website and then share it on Facebook and Twitter. So you can, if you're on any of those platforms, whenever something happens of interest, then you can find us there. I also, on the back table, we have a pad for you to sign if you do not receive our prayer letter that I send out every 2 or 3 months-ish. Then you can sign up for that, and we'll be happy to send you updates. We can get updates there as well. Okay, if we can have the lights, that's it. And I'll stay right here. But I think we may be a little late. I'm making up for this morning. And but if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And if I can't answer them, my lovely wife is sitting right back there and would be happy to answer any questions as well. Yes. Yeah, that's actually a very good question, and I got kind of in a hurry there at the end. When we go back, we want to spend at least 2 years focusing on the camp. And the camp is a project that will be a tremendous blessing to all of our churches there. And that's been demonstrated to us just in the little bit that we have in the last couple of years. So we want to focus on that and kind of get that program functional. In Brazil, we can have year-round activities at the camp. And so we plan on doing that. But to do that, we have to build up the infrastructure a bit more and focus on that. A couple prayer requests. When we get there, we'd like to be able to purchase a truck because my little, where's John? I think John already left. My Fiat didn't quite cut it this time for driving out there in the country. So we'd like to be able to purchase a truck to do that. As for the church, we're going to be involved in the church in kind of and in all of our churches there in kind of more of a support role and secondary role. I am planning on helping them a lot when it comes to building their auditorium. So that's one of our plans. And they've been raising some money, and we've been raising some money. And so you'll be hearing about that when we get close. And okay, we're going to build. We've already decided what kind of building we want to build. And we just need to know because construction prices have fluctuated. And so when we're ready to build, when they're close, and we can come through and kind of meet them in the middle and be able to build it. So hopefully in 2022. But as for our main focus, we would really like for the next 2 years at least for our main focus to be the camp. And then we want to remain open because we're open to the possibility of starting another church. And we're especially looking at possibly starting something close to the camp, which would be the first time in our state that we've gone into the interior. Everything we have so far is around the capital. And so we want to go to the interior. So that's a very good, thank you for asking that. I was supposed to say that before, yes.
So is the plan to drive back and forth 2 hours every day?
Not every day. Not every day. Usually what we'll do is if we go, we spend a longer amount of time. And that's possible. Before, when we were going, we couldn't really stay at the camp. There was no way for us to stay at the camp, so we'd stay at a local hotel, and that got kind of pricey. But now we can just stay at the camp. And we've been doing that for the last, 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, just staying at the camp. And that's a lot. It makes it a lot easier. And so that's what we'll do. We'll spend several days at a time, then go back to San Luis, and then several more days at a time at the camp. So another great question. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Well, I was okay, I'll turn the service back over, or just close in prayer. Okay, all right. So bow with me in prayer. Father, thank you for this church, for the blessing that this church has been in our lives and ministry, and over the years, even before ministry in Brazil. Thank you for the church leadership, for Pastor Pyatt, and all of the ways that they have encouraged us and motivated us and just invested in this ministry. I pray that you bless them, continue to bless this church and all that they do, and to be a light in this community as well. Thank you for this opportunity to share, and I pray that you will use this presentation to stir the hearts of people and even maybe young people to come and help us in Brazil, and maybe stir some people's hearts to come and help us on a more permanent basis. These things we pray, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen.